Salutations, everybody. It is Maddie here today, and we're talking about Disney, who owns literally everything worth caring about in entertainment. They own Marvel. They own Star Wars. They own me. Well, they wish they owned me. But with that out of the way, ladies and gentlemen, a conversation has been sparked in the games industry, and it's revolving around the war being waged for all of the IP that Disney owned, from Pirates of the Caribbean to Indiana Jones, Marvel games, Star Wars games. There's so much diversity, and now is, like I always say, the best time to be a gamer, because we're actually seeing phenomenal games come out of these IP. And it's been awesome to see Marvel catch up with the times and start really handing them out to competent studios. Now, every now and then you'll get something like Avengers, but now we have things like Insomniac's Spider-Man. And there's been a significant development on the PlayStation side of things where they're really nurturing that Disney relationship and continuously getting big IP for their platform. And so a lot of Xbox fans are going, well, we don't need to copy them. And some are also saying, yo, they're doing the right thing. I wanted to talk about all that here today, because this is something that I've consistently brought up since 2018 when Insomniac's Spider-Man first rolled around. It was phenomenal. I said, this is going to be the start of a little IP war. You're going to start to see everyone start making their bid for successful games within the superhero genre and eventually within Star Wars, because there's too much money to be made. As games become more expensive, they need to hand them out to studios that will treat them right and with passion. So if you're new here and you're into PlayStation, Xbox, we talk about it all here, mostly Xbox in all fairness, consider subscribing. And with that, let's get into it. So do I feel, first and foremost, that Xbox needs to play this game of bidding on Disney IP? Yes, I do. And not only that, I have it on pretty good authority that with something like Knights of the Old Republic Remake, they were in on that. And that's where I really want to begin for obvious reasons. But more than anything, it's that I have it on pretty good authority that Xbox was involved in trying to get Knights of the Old Republic Remake to their platform. It's just that Sony wanted it more. And this is where I think the conversation is best started, because that displays to me a lack of willingness. And we'll develop it beyond that based off what PlayStation's doing, by the way, phenomenally at that. But there was a lack of willingness to go for not only a fantastic IP in Star Wars, but Knights of the Old Republic, which called your systems, being Xbox and PC, home for nearly 2 decades. And I don't know if there's ever been a PlayStation game that has then left that ecosystem and the remake ended up on Xbox. Like, imagine Metal Gear Solid being remade over on Xbox. What? So KOTOR going to PS5, smart move by PlayStation. But Xbox, knowing that they were actually in on that deal and they let it go, that willingness needs to be there, because you got to have the finger on the pulse of what's hot right now in pop culture. And the Old Republic is coming. That's all I'm saying, right? We've seen the reports, the leaks of more books, movies, shows. Now we got a game announced. It's coming, damn it. And Microsoft had the chance to be ahead of the curve, and they dropped out. But then you go into stuff that is seemingly guaranteed wins, where PlayStation is intelligently nurturing that Disney relationship, where they said, we'll make this Insomniac Spider-Man game. And it was so good. It was so well done that they let them make a Miles Morales game and then said, here's a sequel. And by the way, here's Wolverine as well. And when you look at the plethora of Xbox studios, we don't want anyone being peeled off their projects. Where in the case of KOTOR, it was a situation where they actually could have done that because it wouldn't have been one of their first-party studios. But PlayStation is making intelligent use of investing in first-party by saying, hey, Insomniac has multiple studios. Let's hand one Spider-Man, let's hand one Wolverine, and really create a compelling reason to come to our systems. I love what they're doing. I can't emphasize that enough, especially as a comic book geek. But this is not to shortchange Xbox's efforts. We've seen them get Disney Plus on Game Pass. That's probably the most minimal one of it all. But more importantly is Indiana Jones is on its way from Machine Games. And then you also have the expansion for Sea of Thieves by Rare, A Pirate's Life, which dives into Pirates of the Caribbean. And while these are known IP and popular ones at that, you're not really catching the wave necessarily with all of those. You know, Indiana Jones, I love Indiana Jones, by the way. I don't think I talk about it enough. I love Indiana Jones. But that's no Star Wars right now. That's no Marvel right now. And I don't think you're catching that on an upswing, something like you would have with the Old Republic. Not only that, but it's been handed off to a studio where I love Machine Games. I think they've done really good work with 2 of the Wolfenstein games. but they're sort of spotty. They had a phenomenal, one of the best first-person shooters ever, in my opinion, released in 2014 with Wolfenstein New Order. Then its sequel, New Colossus, was, I thought, great, but it was very cutscene heavy. And then Youngblood and Old Blood, I feel, just speak for themselves as being completely lackluster, where over the years, they've sort of gradually gone downhill. Now, maybe with passion for Indiana Jones, it picks back up, but this isn't like you've handed it to Insomniac, or in the case of Xbox, you've handed it to Obsidian, you've handed it to Bethesda Game Studios, you've handed it to the Coalition, right? That's the difference there as well. Why I think Xbox fans are a bit whelmed by Xbox's efforts with Disney is they necessarily haven't failed at creating relationships, because if you look at the raw numbers here, they've both successfully struck 2 partnership deals. Just PlayStation has struck multiple IP within a partnership deal with Marvel and Insomniac. But in the terms of total studios, you have Aspyr Media and Insomniac Games for PlayStation, and Xbox, it's Machine Games and Rare working with Disney IP. So it's really been fair. It's just that once that they found out that Insomniac and Marvel were really clicking, they're like, let's grab this and this and this while we're at it. Like, they went on a shopping spree. And once again, I gotta say it, very smart. There are other companies involved in this as well. I mentioned the likes of Square Enix and 2K, but also Nintendo has their own exclusive Marvel game in the name of Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3. I remember when this was first announced, I was very convinced this would eventually leave the platform, because Nintendo never struck me as the one who needed an exclusive Marvel game. But in the long run, I think it was, once again, smart investment. These are required now, I feel. You need your Disney games. I don't know how else to put it. Xbox has talked extensively, Phil Spencer specifically, about being more global, being more kid-friendly. What better way, outside of Wolverine, to get someone through the door than with Marvel, than with Star Wars? And of course, there's the potential of going beyond that. What are we looking at with DC? There were rumors of Warner Bros. And Xbox joining ranks, although those were quickly squashed by Warner Bros. But you got to wonder if Xbox is looking to take this in a different direction. But as a comic book fan and growing up, maybe I'm a little bit more passionate about this than other people, because I grew up, like many others, during an era where tie-in games were nothing more than synchronized with movie releases that were horrible. There were so many bad superhero games because games were cheaper to make, but as they got expensive, you had to be more smart about who you made a partnership with, and we saw a lot of superhero games flop until the Batman Arkham series rolled around, and that was absolutely fantastic, and they created what I think is one of the best games of all time in Batman Arkham City, and it showed there and then that you can make phenomenal open world, well-told stories in superhero video games, and that really changed the whole landscape. And so now we're living in that era. This is a common thing. We're getting good superhero games, right? And outside of Avengers, but we're getting mostly good superhero games. I forgot about Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. A decent amount are good. So I know we're living in a different time now, but it's why I've really put on the pressure that Xbox needs to start turning it up a notch, working on those relations. Don't let another KOTOR remake slip by. And I'm not saying it because some people will misinterpret what I'm saying with why would you let KOTOR slip because I want it on my system, my platform. No, you already know. I'm so happy it exists. And thank you, PlayStation, for helping make that happen. Maybe it wouldn't have happened without them. But Xbox, I remember even seeing Phil Spencer talk on Twitter about him talking to EA to get a KOTOR remaster working. So again, not even from my own sources, there has been public willingness displayed by Xbox. Why they've let that slip, I will never understand. And let it be a lesson. Hopefully this sends a message to them. Wow, we fucked up. Because they did. They 100% did in my eyes. And I think they need to be a little bit more aggressive because it's important to growing their platform. And hey, the crazy thing we all talk about, Game Pass. Imagine if Game Pass had resting within it a ton of Marvel and Star Wars games. Certainly that would grow the service like they want it to. And I think that's also very important. So I'm a little bit fired up on this topic because I love what I'm seeing. Like Midnight Suns looks excellent. I love what Insomniac's doing. And I want Xbox to take some of their talent when they're available and apply them to this because I think they can really shock a lot of people because they have that first party talent, so many studios, and some of those studios are multiple studios in multiple locations. So there is opportunity there. And I'm glad that they're building a portfolio of IP, but I think they need to invest in this as well. It's really important for growth in the long term, and I'm sure a lot of people will get upset at me because I want them to do what PlayStation's doing, But PlayStation is led by example with phenomenal exclusives. Xbox is led by example with value. The two companies can learn from each other. If you haven't noticed, I've said this in separate videos. PlayStation looks like a moron sometimes when they're trying to squeeze $10 out of you for Horizon's upgrade before saying, we'll give it to you for free, and then we'll charge you $10 for all the future games. Like, okay. I'm sorry, I forgot. Sony was really just looking for table scraps at this point. It's an awful look. Whereas with Xbox, I feel like they're addressing their exclusivity thing, but they need to strike more partnership deals. And again, I need to emphasize, with KOTOR, this wasn't an issue where it's like, oh, we have to peel talent off of different IP. We don't want to do that. You had a company ready and willing to make it with Xbox Legacy, and you let it go. So I'm disappointed on that front. But more than anything, I want Xbox to try to be a little more aggressive in addressing this weakness here. I understand my passion will not replicate that of everyone else's, but you know how I roll. I just give you my opinion. I want to hear yours. I'm always invested in that discussion, but let's be respectful to one another. So I'll leave it in your hands now. Let me know what you're thinking in the comments down below. Do you think Xbox needs to go in on Disney? Is this their one true weakness, or is there more beyond it that maybe I haven't talked about? Let me know. Other than that, be sure to follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. And a big thank you to all the patrons and all the members who continue to sign up, who continue to support what we're doing here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.